AI ops. What is AI operations? It's a rabbit hole. There is so much under that one term. Normally it's a buzzword. It takes me 20 minutes to figure it out. This was, wow. The number one thing on every survey that I read about AI adoption is the IT management. IT is the one using AI. And so I looked at it. Why is IT the only one deploying AI? And it's really this AI ops. They're all buying platforms that help them manage a ridiculous amount of complexity for, and I'll get into all of this, but for this laundry list of ops, IT really has too much ops. And so now they're using data science and machine learning embedded into different applications, and they're building some of their own. So they're buying some from well-known companies. And I'm going to get into who the major vendors in AI ops are later on in this video. But they're buying these solutions, or they're building these solutions to fill in gaps, and they are using actual machine learning and actual data science. One of the rubs on a lot of the platforms is they didn't used to use machine learning. It was all hard-coded logic, but now apparently they've finally gotten with the program, and they are using data science and machine learning approaches to handle too much ops. Things like NOC, Network Operations Center ops, IT ops, infrastructure ops, dev ops, machine learning ops. There are even things like marketing ops and HR ops. Everybody has a technology stack right now, and every single one of those technology stacks has to integrate. It has to get on the network. It has to have infrastructure partitioned to it. It's insane. There is so much that IT is doing right now that there's no way. There's no way that an IT team can be big enough without automation to handle all of the work that they're doing. And that's AI ops. It means that there's a ton of money coming into this space. So if you're looking for one of those kind of safe haven career spots to land right now, AI ops or any of these IT automation types of companies, or working on applications, building those custom-made AI ops, IT automation, machine learning models behind them, those are all safe haven spots. What's driving this? Obviously, the talent gap and the rising costs of IT talent. That's a big deal. But it's the scale and complexity of these systems that they're managing. The amount of logging data and observability data that's coming into play here, there's just no way. It's gone past human scale. And the amount of time that you have to respond, the service level agreements with users, they require near real-time responses. And so that mean time to respond, MTTR, is one of the IT, I guess, big metrics. That is got to be as small as possible. And the amount of people that it takes in order to resolve an issue in that short amount of time that they have needs to be reduced, because companies can't afford to hire enough people, and they can't find them even if they could afford them. So that's what's driving AI ops. And that's why it's one of those safe areas in our field. Money will keep flowing into this no matter what, because IT is not getting simpler. It's getting more complicated. So there's no way this goes backwards. If you're looking for a safe spot to land in your career, this is probably a good place to land. Now, what is an AI ops platform? Well, it's a single platform that provides access to all model functionality across this insane domain of use cases. So you got the models at the center, and there's usually APIs and agents built on top of them that provide access to the functionality. You've got visualizations being used to show anyone that's really looking at it or needs to understand what's going on across just this massive, we'll get into that in a minute, massive, sprawling IT organization. It handles things like automated responses. So if something fails, there are some cases where the machine learning models will actually prescribe a response, or they've automated the response altogether. They sort of facilitate self-service infrastructure management. You've got auditing and regulatory compliance in industries like healthcare and finance. There is a security and info security, cybersecurity aspect to these. So some security logging, some security really management and monitoring. They do applications, performance management, and they automate finding all of the stuff that IT has to manage. It's crazy that IT doesn't know all of the things that are on the network, but they don't. It's gotten too big. So there are processes that do automated host, process, job, app, service, network, log, and on and on and on. They automate the discovery of all of those things that IT needs to be aware of and likely also needs to manage and track. And finally, there's this concept of agents. It's really ugly, and I'm not going to dive into what agents do because they do everything. So they basically facilitate and connect things, and sometimes performs tasks, sometimes perform data gathering, moving data around. Agents are like the buzzword, and the intelligent agents are apparently the best ones, and those are what we build. So agents are everywhere in AI ops. So the biggest problem, I guess you could say, that AI ops has is that we have to manage data from multiple sources. So if you're working in an AI ops environment as a data scientist, data engineering is one of your biggest challenges. So obviously streaming and batch data, it's called telemetry data, which is really a combination of all of the things that I'm about to list off. So there's logging. Just everything in the world creates logs now. Most logs are extremely verbose. So these logs are extremely big, and they need to be parsed quickly for any number of different things. You've got systems and application performance data that's coming in, events and incidents that are coming in from like ticketing systems where somebody logs an incident, creates an incident ticket. So data's coming in from those. Applications usage data from in-house apps and products. And so there's internal users and customers, and some apps that were developed by third parties. Some apps don't even run inside the company. They're run on the cloud, managed by third parties, but they still need data about it to understand just this complex topology that IT has to manage. So there's your events, your incidents, tickets from all of these systems connecting with all of these events. You can see how it's just, when I say topology and graph, that's what we're looking at. This is a ridiculously complex system. There are things like even infrastructure health and infrastructure age that needs to be tracked. There's so much that's coming in and inundating these systems. And so the data, when I say it's gone beyond human scale and human management capability, that's the problem statement for data scientists and machine learning engineers and data engineers, especially in this field, is that it's gone beyond what people can handle. And so we have to step in and build solutions to handle really this complex topological graph of all of that different sources of data and more. And they're managing now different systems. You got legacy systems that were never meant to output the kind of data that's necessary in order to track them and monitor them. You have more modern digital systems which are propagating as companies do that digital transformation. These systems are sprouting up all over the place. Network, edge, IoT, you got public-private hybrid clouds, you've got the in-house developed applications and products. I can't even imagine what it's like to be in IT right now. I am so glad I am not in IT. So what would our models learn? What are the details of what it is that we would be doing in one of these roles? Well, Gartner kind of brings it into three categories. They've got engage, observe, and act. So engagement is really managing the services that IT provides. Observing is managing performance of everything. And then acting is we begin to automate. We begin to create models that will automate responses, especially when we have time constraints where there's no way a person would even discover it, let alone react to it in time. So models do things like root cause analysis. Anomaly detection is huge, especially in these log files and observability data. Basically predictive everything, maintenance, downtime, usage. It's just anything you can imagine on a network needs to be predicted. The automated responses need to be essentially prescriptive modeling. The automated responses need to be pretty accurate because if they're wrong, I mean, you can do some pretty bad damage by essentially deploying the wrong solution or failing at the root cause analysis phase. So accuracy is extremely important here. There are canned models in use for things like chatbots, automated alert sending, messaging, that sort of thing. And there's also this deeper theme of turning IT's domain expertise into a knowledge base that models can learn from. And a lot of that is how they are learning to act, how they figure out what response they need to have to a particular incident. Learning from a knowledge graph, learning from people. And that leads to one of the biggest ML themes in AI ops, which is human-machine tooling versus human-machine teaming. So when we're talking about hard-coded logic, the AI ops platform is a tool. It's a dashboard. It's just telling you what's going on. And people use it as a tool to become more efficient. That's human-machine tooling. And in some cases, there are models involved. There's definitely some analysis, some data visualization going on. But when we go from human-machine tooling to human-machine teaming, now there is an interplay between the two. And so the model enters the equation and begins to perform some of the operations autonomously. And it does that, which implies that it's taking autonomy away from the person, from that human in the team. That's where reliability frameworks come into play. Most systems have to have a serious explainability component to them so that people start trusting them. And so this trustworthy, explainability, reliability, all of those are huge themes from just the AI ops, I don't know, from the implementation standpoint, from the usability standpoint. The models have to have a high level of reliability, but not only that, they have to be able to explain to users why they made the decisions that they did, why they think this is important as an anomaly or as an event that has just been detected. Why do they think this particular system's about to go down or usage is going up? So there needs to be some sort of infrastructure response. All of those require explainability, where you're essentially telling or convincing, the model's really convincing the person that they need to do something based on probably a lot of features and a massive amount of data that can't be just reported out all at once. So those are the main themes. You look at a lot of natural language processing, there's obviously time series and anomaly detection. Those are sort of secondary to those larger issues that I talked about with the human-machine teaming, the explainability, and the reliability. Now, let me wrap up by getting through some of the companies that are in this space. Big Panda, I've never heard of Big Panda before this. Big Panda is apparently a very big player in this space. I guess that's why they're a big panda and a little one. Datadog, I've heard of before. IBM Watson AI, Watson's still around. Watson has an AI ops component. BMC has an AI ops. Cisco does App Dynamics. Broadcom has something called DX Operational Intelligence, which I guess has been around forever, but that's news to me. Splunk's a big player in this space. And then there were a bunch of companies I've never heard of before. Centerity, Cloud Fabrics, Dynatrace, Micro Focus, Moogsoft, New Relic, OpsRamp, and Nastal. Apparently they're all very large players in the AI ops space. Those are all companies that you would want to research. If you're looking to transition your career in that direction, more than likely you can get into one of those companies right now because this is expanding rapidly. The landscape of tools is only going to get bigger. I mean, if you think ML Ops has a ridiculous number of tools, AI Ops is probably going to have 2 or 3 times as many tools as we do. It is a massive need. These companies are going to have to staff up their data science and machine learning capabilities and teams because, like I said at the very beginning, one of the biggest rubs is that, everybody was saying AI, just like in every other thing. People were saying we do AI, we do machine learning, but they actually weren't. So now having solid models, and you hear from some of the themes, these are complex challenges. So they need high-end talent. They need very capable people with experience along those really leading edge lines. When you talk about human machine teaming, sort of leading edge lines in data science. So it's not just going to be stable work, it's also going to be fairly interesting work. So AI ops, it's worth digging into a little bit, see if it's for you. And like I said, you're definitely going to see investment rising. So as other companies maybe are cooling down and slowing down hiring, if you're looking for a more stable place to land, or just looking for something interesting to do, AI ops, probably worth checking out and getting into.